You step into the world of 1930s Vienna, where a young girl named Hedy Lamarr is dreaming of a future far beyond her station. You can feel the excitement in the air as she runs through the busy streets of her hometown, her mind filled with visions of invention, art, and freedom. But for now, she's still just a teenager, living in an era where women's roles are defined by what others expect of them. Yet, Hedy is different. Even as a young girl, you can sense that she's not going to follow the ordinary path. She's curious about everything, and most importantly, she's driven by the desire to make an impact on the world. As you walk beside her, you feel her passion for learning. Hedy's talent for the performing arts is undeniable, and by the time she reaches her teens, she's already a budding star. But she's not content to simply become a famous actress. Even then, she has a thirst for knowledge and a mind that refuses to be limited by the traditional boundaries placed upon her. As she's guided by her ambition, you begin to understand that her story is one of extraordinary courage. She has the heart of an inventor, even though society doesn't see her that way. Hedy's first real break into acting comes when she's cast in a film called Ecstasy in 1933. At just 18 years old, Hedy becomes an overnight sensation. This film, which features controversial scenes that were scandalous for the time, puts her in the spotlight, but it also locks her into a role defined by her beauty and allure. People across Europe are captivated by her, but no one notices the extraordinary mind behind the captivating face. You can feel the irony in the air. Hedy has so much more to offer, but the world is focused only on what's visible. In Hollywood, her fame grows, and soon Hedy moves to the United States to continue her acting career. You see her dazzling in countless films, becoming one of the most sought-after actresses of her time. However, you also sense the conflict brewing within her. Hedy is more than just a pretty face, she's a thinker, a dreamer. But her true potential, her mind, is largely ignored in favor of her glamorous image. It must have been frustrating for her, knowing she had so much to offer but being forced into roles that didn't reflect her true abilities. Hedy was constantly labeled as just another actress, defined by her looks and her roles on the silver screen. But the real Hedy Lamarr, the one who was curious, inventive, and driven, was buried beneath the surface, only visible to those who truly paid attention. Even though she was celebrated for her beauty and charm, she remained an enigma, a woman with the heart of a genius hidden behind the glamorous persona. And yet, her true genius was slowly beginning to stir. You step into Hollywood. The golden age of cinema is in full swing, and the world can't stop talking about Hedy Lamarr. She's now a star, known for her striking beauty and her captivating performances. But behind the glitz and glamour of Tinseltown, something else is brewing, a quiet revolution in Hedy's mind. You can see her on set, rehearsing her lines, but her thoughts aren't solely on acting. They're racing towards something bigger, something that could change the world. At night, after her shooting schedules, Hedy would sit down and read books about technology and science. She was particularly interested in the world of radio waves and communications. The film industry wasn't enough for her, it didn't satisfy her curiosity. She wanted to understand how things worked, not just on screen but in the real world. Her mind was alive with ideas that, at the time, seemed far too advanced for the Hollywood beauty queen. Hedy didn't let the constraints of her career stop her from dreaming. When she wasn't acting, she attended lectures and spoke with scientists and engineers. She learned about new innovations and technologies, absorbing knowledge like a sponge. But as a woman, her interest in science was seen as odd, even eccentric. She wasn't just an actress anymore, she was becoming a thinker, an inventor in her own right. But no one in Hollywood took her seriously. To them, she was just the beautiful starlet with no place in the world of science. Then, one night, the spark she had been waiting for finally ignited. It happened during a dinner party hosted by her then-husband, Fritz Mandel, a wealthy arms dealer who had connections with the military. It was here that Hedy first learned about the challenges of radio-controlled torpedoes. The military was trying to find a way to prevent their torpedoes from being jammed by enemy forces during World War II. At the time, the technology was rudimentary, and the chance of failure was high. But Hedy's mind immediately began to race. You can almost hear her thoughts. What if there was a way to change the frequency of the radio signals being used, making them impossible to jam? What if I could create a system that allowed these torpedoes to move and communicate freely, without interference? With her newfound knowledge of radio technology, Hedy began working in secret, away from the public eye. She spent late nights sketching out designs for a frequency-hopping system that would ensure secure, interference-free communication. She had no formal education in engineering, but she didn't let that stop her. She read books, spoke to experts, and even consulted with an inventor named George Untold, who was a composer and engineer. Together, they began developing a revolutionary idea, a system that would jump between different frequencies, preventing enemy forces from jamming the signal. The concept was radical. At the time, no one believed it could work. How could a system jump frequencies so quickly and seamlessly? It seemed impossible. But Hedy was determined. She knew that if they could make this work, it would not only help the military but also have applications in the civilian world, including telecommunications, radio, and later, even Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. After months of hard work, Hedy and Untold finally developed their invention, a system that used a mechanism of frequency hopping to prevent interception or jamming of radio signals. They patented the invention in 1942, and it was a game-changer. But instead of being celebrated for her ingenuity, Hedy's work went largely unnoticed. The U.S. Navy, which had initially been interested in her idea, didn't take it seriously. They felt the system was too complicated to be practical for wartime use. Hedy's invention was sidelined, and her contributions were forgotten. Can you imagine how Hedy must have felt at that moment? Here was a woman who had just created a piece of technology that could change the course of history, yet the world didn't seem to care. She had worked in secret, poured her heart and soul into something that could save lives, and still, her genius was brushed aside. She didn't have the recognition she deserved, not from the military, not from the public, and not from the industry she worked in. And so, Hedy Lamarr's time in Hollywood continued. She remained an icon, a symbol of beauty, but her true talent, her mind, her creativity, was left in the shadows. She kept working, kept acting, and kept her invention hidden. But something had changed inside her. She had proven to herself that she was more than just an actress. She was an inventor, a visionary. And although her invention wasn't appreciated in her time, it would later leave a lasting mark on the world. You step into the years that follow, and you can feel the quiet struggle in Hedy's heart. By now, she's one of Hollywood's most famous actresses. People adore her, the press gushes over her looks, and her movies become box office hits. But in the background, she's still that same woman who, years ago in Vienna, dreamed of something more. The world may have forgotten her as an inventor, but her passion for technology never died. Hedy's days in front of the camera became increasingly hollow, and you can sense that she was searching for something more meaningful in life. It wasn't just the world that dismissed her invention, it was also the very industry she had given so much to. After her patent for the frequency-hopping system was ignored, Hedy found herself not only dismissed by the military but also distanced from her peers in the film world. In Hollywood, she was still treated as a beautiful actress, but never as the genius she was. It's easy to see how she must have felt crushed. Here was a woman with a mind capable of groundbreaking discoveries, yet she had to keep pretending to be just another glamorous starlet. In the years that followed, her invention lay dormant, gathering dust. The military didn't use it, and the world moved on. Yet, as fate would have it, the technology she created would one day prove to be revolutionary. It wasn't until decades later, after Hedy had long since retired from acting, that the true value of her work began to surface. As wireless communication became increasingly important, the world started to realize how far ahead of her time she had truly been. Hedy's frequency-hopping invention, once ignored, would go on to influence the development of wireless technology, including Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, technologies we now rely on every day. But for Hedy, the recognition didn't come soon enough. By the time the world finally acknowledged her groundbreaking contribution, she had long retired from acting. It would take years, even decades, for her to receive the credit she deserved. She was posthumously inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2014, and her work is now celebrated as one of the most significant innovations of the 20th century. However, Hedy passed away in 2000, never truly experiencing the recognition she had earned in her lifetime. Still, her genius has not been forgotten. Her life serves as a reminder of the power of persistence and the importance of staying true to your passion, even when the world around you doesn't understand. Hedy Lamarr was an actress, yes, but she was also a visionary, one whose work would leave a lasting mark on the world. You step into the present day, and there's a quiet sense of fulfillment in the air. The years have passed, and Hedy Lamarr's name is no longer just associated with her roles in glamorous movies. Today, her legacy is being recognized for the very thing she had once dreamed of, her ingenuity and her groundbreaking work in technology. In a sense, her life has come full circle. The world that once overlooked her intellect now stands in awe of her contributions. You can feel the shift in the air, as more and more people begin to connect the dots between the technologies we use every day and the woman who was behind them. Hedy Lamarr's frequency-hopping invention, once ignored, has turned out to be far ahead of its time. Today, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and even modern-day communication systems all owe a debt to the work that Hedy and George Untold developed in the 1940s. The system they created was the precursor to the wireless communication technologies that are now integral to our daily lives. Without her work, the way we communicate, work, and even live would be vastly different. But it's not just the technology that's now being recognized. Hedy Lamarr's story has become an inspiration for people around the world. Imagine living in a world where your talents are dismissed simply because of your gender or the way you look. Imagine being told that you're only valuable for your beauty, not your brain. Yet Hedy, despite the challenges, kept her head high. She kept inventing, creating, and dreaming, even when no one was watching. Her resilience is what makes her truly remarkable. As time passed, Hedy's legacy was slowly revived. She was posthumously inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2014, and her work continues to inspire future generations of engineers, scientists, and inventors. You can almost feel the pride in the air as Hedy's name is mentioned with the same respect reserved for some of the greatest minds in history. Finally, the world is acknowledging the truth, that Hedy Lamarr was not just a pretty face but a visionary who helped shape the future of communication. It's fascinating to think how history sometimes has a way of erasing or ignoring the contributions of those who don't fit into the conventional mold. Yet, when we look closely, we find that some of the greatest breakthroughs in history have come from those who refuse to be silenced or confined. Hedy Lamarr was one of those people. She never let the world define her, and in the end, she created a legacy that will live on for generations. Today, when we use our smartphones, laptops, or wireless headphones, we're unknowingly benefiting from the very technology that Hedy Lamarr helped pioneer. Her story reminds us of the importance of perseverance and self-belief. It shows us that, sometimes, it takes years, decades even, for the world to truly recognize our value. But if we stay true to ourselves, if we keep pushing forward with our passions, our work will eventually speak for itself.